Hello class, this is Mr. Pickett and I wanted to make sure that we're going to basically go through the Blender 2.0 and not Blender 2.0 but making a donut for the second time and then going through the scene. And so I'm going to quickly go through a couple things that I think are going to help a lot of you out. What you're going to notice here in the bottom left is I'll have that screencast tool up here. So if I click things, you'll be able to track my progress right there. I'm going to try to go quickly but also make sure that we're highlighting some things that you need to know. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a donut in here. So I'll hit Shift A, and then I will go to the closest thing to a donut, which is a torus. And remember, when we add the torus in initially, it gives us so many segments that we can start with. And so I can change the number of segments in here, which is going to really kind of change the resolution of my object. And I can't make it too small so I lose that donut shape, but I don't want to make it so big so that way my render time ends up being absolutely crazy. So I don't know. I'm just going to go with something that I think that looks okay, which is 24. And then I'm also going to change the radius. I can change a couple of these different radiuses here if I want to. You can kind of see and play around with what looks good for you. But that's a good looking donut to me. So I've got the donut created, which is good. And then the next thing that I want to do is I want to think about adding the frosting. And when I add frosting on here, we're going to go through a couple different modes. What I really want to do here is I want to duplicate the top half of my drawing here, of my donut, excuse me. And then I'm going to basically duplicate it, select it into place, and then I want to make that frosting its own basically its own little thing. And so how I'm going to do that is I'm going to look at this thing from the front view by hitting 1, and then I'm going to hit Z to get to wireframe mode, and then I'm going to get to edit mode here as well. I'll hit A so that way I haven't had everything selected. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the box select tool by hitting B, and those crosshairs will come up. I'll drag this, and I'll select everything that way. Okay, so that's good. How I duplicate objects is I hit Shift D, and then I'm going to click it right into place. I'm not going to move my cursor at all. While I still have this selected, what we've just done is we have created a donut and then we duplicated the top of it. And so I basically got 2 copies of the top part on here. So what I want to do is I want to make the new duplicate, so the frosting that I just created, I want to make it its own thing. As we look to the right over here, I just have one torus and that's it. I know that I have the torus and then I have the top part of the torus. So I've got to tell the program that what I've selected up here is its own thing. So I'll hit P, and this is going to allow me to separate some things that used to be conjoined together, and I'm going to separate it by the selection that I have here. And what we'll notice is that I have torus and then torus 1. So that's my frosting and that's my donut. So I'm going to rename this. I'm going to call this the donut, and I'm going to rename this. I'm going to call this the frosting. So there we go. That's good. So I'll get out of object mode. Excuse me, I'll get out of the wireframe by hitting Z, and I can click, and you'll notice that we have, we basically have that. So there's the first video. All right, let's click here.